Trapped in a shed to freeze, she thought she'd die, until a stranger broke in. But is he her savior, or the key to a darker secret waiting to unravel? The lock snapped shut with a clang that rang louder than the wind screaming outside, a wild howl tearing through the night. Lena Rose Carver didn't scream back, yelling burned breath, and in this brutal cold, every puff was a lifeline. She stood frozen for a moment, her fingers trembling in the thick, suffocating dark of the shed. Then she heard it, boots crunching hard through snow, moving away slow. Men's voices drifted back, low and rough, laughing like they'd won something. A curse spat over a shoulder, sharp and careless. Then silence hit, huge, empty, and cruel, swallowing the world whole. The darkness wasn't pure. Thin slivers of moonlight crept through the warped wooden walls, silver threads weaving a weak glow. It wasn't much, but it showed her the dirt floor packed hard beneath her boots, piles of old hay gone sour with mold, and a rusted rake slumped in the corner like a forgotten ghost. Just enough to see she was alone now, abandoned to die slow. Lena stumbled to the wall, pressed her back against the splintered wood, and slid down, knees slamming the frozen earth. Her breath puffed out in shaky bursts, white clouds fading fast in the icy air. Winter had roared in early, a beast with teeth, and her cousins, well, if you could call them that, had set this trap with cold precision. She wrapped her arms tight around herself, clawing at the last scraps of warmth in her body. They'd yanked her coat off her back, muttering some garbage about a horse needing it more, smirking as they said she wouldn't last the night anyway. She squeezed her eyes shut for a beat, letting the weight of it all crash over her. Tiredness, cold, and a grief that stuck like tar. It had been there since Turon, since he bled out on their porch, his voice breaking on her name, begging forgiveness for not making it home sooner. Loss didn't just hurt. It shrank her, folded her up tight like someone crumpled a sheet of paper, then folded it again and again until she was small enough to shove in a drawer and forget. She'd been folded so many times she barely recognized the woman left behind. Lena jerked her eyes open, shook her head hard to clear the fog. The cold was sinking deeper now, slipping under her thin dress like icy hands clawing at her skin. She hauled herself up, legs shaky as a newborn colt, and started moving. Small steps at first, arms locked around her ribs, then stomping her boots to force blood back into her feet. She couldn't panic. Panic was a flash fire, hot and gone in seconds. She needed something slower, something that burned steady, or she'd freeze into nothing. But damn, it was hard. The shed was a graveyard, bare walls, empty corners, no mercy. She searched anyway, hands fumbling in the shadows, desperate for anything. She found an old burlap sack, rough and patched with holes, and slung it over her shoulders like a sad excuse for a cloak. There was a clump of damp hay, real enough to soften the wall as she sank back down, breath hitching. Time dragged on, thick and sluggish like molasses trapped in ice. She kept herself awake, counting heartbeats, 100, 200, 300, 400, eyes wide, refusing to let the dark pull her under. A rat darted past her boot, claws clicking on the dirt. She didn't even twitch. Was it the second night? She couldn't tell. Time blurred into a smear of cold and shadow. She dreamed of Turon then, sharp and haunting. He stood in the snow, no coat, wind whipping his brown hair, flashing that half smile he gave when she caught him in a lie. She reached for him, fingers stretching, but he turned to smoke, slipping away. She woke with a gasp, lips cracked and bleeding, legs numb from the thighs down. She tried to stand, fell hard with a grunt, pain spiking. Her ankle had twisted sometime in the night, unnoticed in the numbness, but now it throbbed, swollen and ugly. "Damn you, Margaret," she hissed, voice a ragged whisper. "Damn all of you to hell." They weren't real kin. Margaret was Turon's cousin, tied just close enough to claim her as family when it suited her. After Turon died, she thought they'd help her hold the land, keep it safe. Instead, they showed up with papers, smooth-talked her into signing things she didn't understand, sold every acre, and locked her in here to disappear. They called it mercy. Margaret's mercy. but it was a death sentence wrapped in a smile. By what she guessed was the third night, snow fell harder. It started soft, brushing the walls like whispers, then pushed through the cracks, dusting her shoulders, her hair, her eyelashes with cold kisses. Too dark to see much, but she felt it piling up, light and relentless. Lena laughed, a short, bitter snap of sound. "First snow of the year," she muttered, voice cracking. "Happy damn winter." Then tears hit, hot and sudden. She hated crying, hated the useless burn of it. But something split wide open inside her, and she sobbed, quiet and shaking, tears freezing into tiny ice trails on her cheeks. She tried conjuring warmth. Not a fire, too easy, but memories. Summer dust swirling gold behind Taran's horse as he rode to the creek, blackberry jam sticking sweet to her fingers, his calloused hand brushing hair from her neck while the sun sank low. It flickered, then faded. The cold one. The fourth night slunk in, time dissolving into a haze. The chill messed with her head. She heard faint music once, a ghost of a tune, then thought she smelled coffee, bitter and warm. Tricks, all of it. She kept her eyes shut now. Less to see, less to ache over. But then, something pierced the fog. Footsteps. Not Margaret's loud stomp or her men's sloppy shuffle. Soft, careful, deliberate. Then breathing, faint but heavy, pushing against the wind outside. Silence stretched, long and tight. She held her breath, chest burning. A creak would groaned, not the walls, the door. Something pressed on it, slow and firm. Her heart slammed against her ribs, hope flaring wild, then fear choking it down. Another creak, louder. The metal latch rattled like it was waking up. A voice, low, steady, not English, muttered words she couldn't grab. And the door splintered, not a big, dramatic crash, but a slow, shrieking split down the middle, wood crying out. Cold air blasted in, white and blinding, snow swirling like a storm unleashed. Lena threw a hand up, squinting hard. A figure stood in the doorway, tall, wrapped in heavy furs, a buffalo hide, cloak hanging thick over broad shoulders. He didn't move at first, just loomed there, a shadow carved against the wild white. Then he stepped inside, boots soft on the dirt. Lena scrambled back, slamming into the wall, fingers closing tight around a rusted rake, its jagged edge her only weapon. He saw her stop dead. "You are not dead," he said, voice rough, thick with an accent she couldn't place. She stared, breathless, heart racing. "I thought maybe you would be." Her mouth opened, dry as dust. "Ooh, who the hell are you?" No answer, just silence, heavy and strange. He crouched beside her, slow, deliberate, his face coming into the faint light. Hard like stone, high cheekbones sharp, a long black braid tied with red strings swinging slightly. Eyes dark as coal smoldering after a fire. "I'm not sick," she rasped, thinking he feared touching her. "Not crazy either. You are dying." He reached into his cloak, pulled a folded blanket free, and draped it over her shoulders without asking. She flinched, too weak to push back. "I can walk," she lied, voice breaking. He glanced at her ankle, swollen, bruised black. "No," he said, flat and final, and lifted her into his arms like she was nothing but air. The cold outside hit her like a fist, stealing her breath in a sharp gasp. Snow spun around them, wild and alive, like ghosts dancing in the storm. Too weak to fight, she pressed her face into his chest, the smell of fur and pine filling her lungs. The world rocked, wind roared, motion blurred, hoarse sweat and forest scents tangled together. She drifted, fading fast. Woke once to fire crackling, shadows leaping on stone walls. Woke again to water boiling, steam curling thick. The third time, it was silence and warmth. Real warmth, sinking into her bones. She lay on a pile of furs near a fire pit, cave walls curving high above, like a protective shell. A kettle hissed soft nearby. The man sat cross-legged by the flames, polishing a knife with slow, steady strokes, the blade glinting in the orange glow. She tried sitting up, collapsed back with a wince, pain shooting through her. He turned his head, calm. "You will not die tonight." "Thanks," she croaked, throat raw as sandpaper. He nodded once, sharp and short. She waited for more. Nothing came. "You gonna tell me your name?" she pressed. He didn't look up from the knife. "Jasper. That's it. You don't need more." She coughed, a dry, hacking sound. "You always talk this much." A pause. Then, to her surprise, a tiny flicker of a smile, gone fast as it came. "You should rest. Storm's got 3 more days at least." She closed her eyes, not to sleep, but to feel hope, fragile and new, sparking for the first time in weeks, maybe months. Beneath the pain, the hunger, something growled. Anger, life, a fire refusing to die. Jasper tossed a log onto the flames, sparks popping. Outside, the wind howled like a beast. Inside, Lena breathed deep, alive, clinging to that spark, wondering who this man was and what he wanted. She woke to fire snapping and a strange, heavy smell. Smoke mixed with herbs, something earthy, bitter, but warm, grounding her in a way the cold never could. Her body ached like she'd been dragged from a frozen river. Ribs tight, legs numb, arms heavy. But the warmth was real, glorious, seeping into her like a lifeline. She turned her head slow, neck stiff, muscles groaning in protest. Jasper sat with his back to her, feeding twigs into a small flame trapped between 2 flat stones, the firelight flickering soft. Beyond him, the cave mouth gaped wide, snow gusting in faint, restless swirls just outside, like it wanted in but couldn't cross the light. For now, it kept her safe, barely. She shifted, wincing as pain lanced up from her ankle and hip, sharp and mean. It hurt bad, but it was honest. It told her she was still here, still fighting. She sat up slow, careful, pulling the buffalo hide tighter around her shoulders. It smelled of smoke, animal fat, and something older, deeper, like stories whispered around fires long gone cold. Jasper didn't turn, didn't speak, letting the silence stretch long and heavy, giving her room to decide if she had a voice left. "You got a weird way of saving people," she said at last, voice rough as gravel. He glanced back, eyes calm, steady. "You were left to die. Didn't mean I needed rescuing." She shot back, weak but stubborn. "Yes, it did." His answer landed simple, heavy as a boulder. No drama, no fuss, just truth that punched through her. She shifted again, testing her weight, grimacing as her ankle throbbed hot. "You always break into sheds and carry women off into the snow." He didn't smile, but something flashed in his eyes. Amusement, maybe buried deep. "No, not usually." "Then why me?" He pulled a small carved bowl from a leather bag, poured steaming water over a handful of crushed leaves. A sharp, minty scent cut through the air, waking her senses. "My sister died last winter," he said, voice low, almost lost in the fire's crackle. Her husband locked her in a barn before the snow hit. Said she'd gone mad after losing her baby. Lena's throat tightened, a knot forming fast. "Found her in spring," he added, flat, like it was just a fact. Frozen stiff, hands scratched bloody at the door. Silence fell hard, thick as the snow outside, sitting between them like a third presence. She stared at the fire, flames licking the logs, unsure what to say, unsure if he even wanted words. He didn't seem to need them. He handed her the bowl, steady as rock. Her hand shook taking it, tea sloshing slightly. "I'm sorry," she murmured, voice small. He nodded once, short, final done. The tea was bitter, stinging her tongue, but it burned a path through the cold inside her, waking her fingers, her toes, her chest. Outside, the wind wailed like a widow mourning. Inside, Jasper stirred a pot with slow, sure hands, steam rising faint. "You Navajo?" she asked after a long stretch, sipping again. "Yes. That's supposed to mean something to me?" "You asked." "I did." She took another sip, the heat spreading deeper. "Got family?" He didn't answer right away, just stared at the pot. "Had many once. Now fewer. Mountains take. White men take. Sometimes we take from ourselves." She nodded slow, understanding the kind of loss, the kind that wore you down a bone, grinned while it stripped you bare, left you hollowed out. "I'm Lena Rose Carver," she said, voice steadier now. He nodded again. "I know." She stiffened, tea nearly spilling. Ow! Heard your name in town. The woman who sold your land bragged loud. Her stomach twisted, sharp and sick. Margaret, yes, said the widow was too weak for winter. Showed the deed, said you were buried on your husband's land, quiet and neat. Folks nodded, ate it up. She swallowed hard, anger flaring under the nausea. She lied, sold the ranch, pocketed the cash, left me in that shed to rot. Jasper looked at her, nothing but patience in his carved face. I know, I want to kill her, she said, voice low, fierce. His eyes didn't flicker, but he tipped his head slightly, like he'd expected it. You might get the chance. She finished the tea, handed the bowl back, hands firm now. Why help me? He stirred the stew again, slow and rhythmic. Because I know what it's like to watch someone die behind a locked door and do nothing. Lena leaned her head against the cave wall, eyes closing for a moment. Her breath steadied, pain still gnawing, but something else sharpened beneath it, something bright, jagged, like a knife's edge catching firelight. The storm raged on outside. 2 more days of wind and snow beating the world raw. Jasper stayed quiet, brought her stew, changed her bandage, helped her hobble a few steps without a word asked or given. He was like stone, solid, silent, always there when she looked. They shared little talk, but what they said cut deep, real, no fluff, just truth landing hard. On the 3rd morning, the wind finally eased, a tired sigh replacing the roar. Sunlight crept onto the cave floor, gold spilling over gray rock, soft but real. Jasper stood at the entrance, staring out at the ridge, his braids swaying slight in the draft. Lena limped over, leaning heavy on a pine stick he'd carved for her, smooth and sturdy. Snow blanketed the valley below like a burial shroud, thick and unbroken, but beyond it, a road snaked down to town, to Margaret, to the life they'd stolen from her. You walking back? She asked, voice low, testing. No, he said, simple. Right? He whistled, a sharp note cutting the air. Minutes later, a paint mare trotted up from the trees, breath puffing white in the cold. She yours. She is now. You steal her, took her from men who don't need her anymore. What's the difference? He looked at her, steady, unblinking. She laughed, a rusty and used sound that echoed off the cave walls, surprising her own ears. Where are we going? She asked, sobering fast. To your cousin. She froze, breath catching hard her chest. I don't know if I can face her. You can. What if I freeze up again? What if I can't do it? Then I go alone. She gripped the reins he handed her, leather biting in her palms, grounding her. You don't even know me, she said, voice tight. I know you didn't die. That sank deep, rooting somewhere she couldn't name. They rode out slow at first, her ankle throbbing with every jolt, but the pain kept her sharp, awake, alive. Snow crunched hard under the mare's hooves. Trees loomed tall and heavy with frost, branches drooping like they carried secrets. The cold bit less now, or maybe she'd grown teeth of her own, ready to bite back. Next day, they stopped by a creek, the water half frozen, edges glinting in the weak sun. Lena knelt awkward, splashing icy handfuls on her face, the shock waking her fully. Jasper stood watch, scanning the treeline, still as a statue. You trust me? She asked sudden, water dripping cold down her neck. He didn't move. Enough. That's not much. More cake most. She nodded, lips pressed tight, wiping her hands on the blanket. You trust yourself? He asked, turning to her, eyes piercing. She blinked, caught off guard. No, not yet. Start there, he said, voice like gravel. That night, they camped under a cliff, flames flickering low, barely pushing back the dark. Jasper sat sharpening his knife, blade catching the fire's glow in quick, silver flashes. Lena lay back, staring up at stars. So many, sharp and endless, too many to count. They ever come for you? She asked into the quiet. The men who left your sister? No, you go after them? Yes. Found them. Let them live. She turned to him, firelight carving shadows on his face. Why? He stared into the flames, unblinking. Wanted to know what restraint tasted like, bitter but mine. She lay back again, eyes wide, counting stars to keep her mind off what waited ahead. Margaret running or fighting, her choking under the weight of it all. She couldn't choke. Not now. Morning crept in, gray and biting. Smoke rose thin from the ranch chimney in the distance, curling into the sky like a signal. Lena's stomach flipped, hands locking tight on the saddle horn, knuckles white. Jasper glanced over, calm as ever. "You don't have to go in yet. We can watch, wait, figure her out." She nodded, throat too tight to speak. "One day, then I want my life back, my land, my name. Still want to kill her?" She thought hard, jaw clenched. "No, I want her to see me standing, breathing, know she lost it all." Jasper smiled, just a flicker, rare and fleeting like a star blinking out. That night, Lena sat by the fire, cleaning her old revolver, fingers steady now, tracing the war metal. Didn't matter if it shot straight yet. It was about holding it, feeling it. Jasper brought a rabbit, skinned it silent, efficient. They cooked without words, but the silence wasn't dead. It was alive, heavy, the kind that sits before a storm breaks, before everything changes. A pause before the reckoning. The sun barely cleared the trees when they spotted tracks. Jasper crouched low, fingers brushing deep cuts in the snow, fresh for horses, maybe 5, tearing through fast and hard. Lena stood beside him, rifle slung awkward over her shoulder, heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. "They're close," he said, voice low, eyes narrowing. Margaret's men. She knew it, but she needed to hear it. He nodded once, sharp. Too heavy for trappers, too careless for soldiers. Her throat tightened, fear clawing up. "They hunting us. Not smart enough to do it right. But yes." Her fingers twitched on the rifle stock, once just for chasing coyotes off the porch, now maybe for blood. They moved quick, doubling back through thick pines, snow muffling their steps, branches brushing their shoulders to hide their scent. Lena followed his lead, ankle sore but steady, breath sharp and fast in her chest. The world went quiet under the snow, but she caught it, distant shouts, hooves thumping faint, growing closer. Margaret wasn't playing soft anymore. They barely spoke that morning. Every second felt borrowed, like the mountains were watching, waiting to see if they'd break or bend. By midday, they ducked into a rocky outcrop, cedar branches draping low, giving cover. Jasper crouched, listening, head tilted slight. Lena scanned the horizon, caught a glint of a hat, a flash of a coat moving through far trees, dropped low fast, heart in her throat. Jasper didn't look. He already knew. "They're flanking," he said, voice steady. "Trying to box us in." Her pulse spiked, racing wild. "How many?" "Too many to shoot all. Not enough to stop us." "I wasn't going to shoot 'em all," she muttered, breathless. He raised a brow, almost amused. "Just Margaret." She hadn't meant to say it out loud, but it was true. Every bone in her hummed with the need to face her, prove she wasn't buried, wasn't gone. Jasper didn't push, just handed her a small pouch of jerky and took a swig from his canteen, passing it over. "We move when light fades," he said, their eyes slow before their guns do. They waited, time crawling slow, patient as the wild itself. Lena counted breaths. One for Turon, one for the land, one for every damn lie Margaret told to sell her out. When they moved again, they slipped through the forest like shadows. Jasper leading, silent and smooth as water. Lena trailing, less graceful but dead set, every snapped twig making her wince, every gust of wind twisting her nerves tight. The trees thinned near a frozen creek bed, ice glinting dull under the gray sky. They stopped at the edge, scanning the clearing ahead. Jasper pointed. Hoof prints slashed across the snow, deep and messy, churned ice scattered, a boot scuff marking a fallen branch nearby. "They're moving faster," she said, voice low. "Or sloppier," he replied, eyes narrowing. They crossed careful, dragging a fallen log behind to blur their trail, snow crunching soft underfoot. Her ankle barked with every step, but she grit her teeth. Pain meant she was still fighting, still here. They pushed higher into the hills, climbing steady. By twilight, the wind kicked up again, sharp and cold, carrying the metallic bite of snow on the way. That night, They skipped a fire. Too risky now. Just a blanket of stars overhead, bright and endless, and the sound of wind threading through bare branches below. Lena sat beside Jasper, back against a cold rock, body aching, stomach growling loud, sleep a distant dream. "Margaret's not just greedy," she said into the dark, voice cutting the quiet. "She's scared. Always has been." Jasper didn't move, just listened. "Scared men do cruel things," he said at last. "First time Turan brought me home, Margaret wouldn't even talk, just stared at me like I was a storm about to wreck her porch." Jasper grunted low. "You were." She smiled faint, barely there. Turan said Margaret had a temper, couldn't be trusted. But family's family, right? You stick by him. Family's choice, Jasper said, voice like stone. Not blood. Silence settled again, heavy and real. Lena closed her eyes, saw the ranch in her mind. Fields gone to rot, porch where she kissed Turan before his last ride out. The shed where that lock clicked shut, sealing her in. "I'm not the same woman I was," she whispered, more to herself. "No," Jasper agreed, soft but sure. "You're not." Dawn broke cold and thin, light slicing through the gray. Jasper scouted ahead, moving silent through the trees, while Lena circled back along a ridge, air biting her lungs, breath puffing quick as she climbed. From the top, she saw them. 5 riders camped just inside the tree below, horses tethered loose, guns resting easy. Margaret sat by the fire, laughing loud, voice carrying up the slope. She froze, breath hitching hard. Same thick jaw, narrow eyes always squinting like the world owed her clarity. But now she looked tired, shoulders slumped, like even betrayal had worn her thin. Her fists clenched tight, nails digging into her palms. She slid down the ridge, nearly tumbling, caught herself on a jagged root, snow spraying. Jasper met her halfway, eyes questioning, waiting. "They're resting," she said, voice tight, urgent. "She's there, Margaret." "Good. We move fast. They'll follow. You want them to chase us?" "Want them alone, one by one." The plan was simple but brutal. Lure them into a narrow ravine south of the old miners' trail, a choke point with no easy exit, no cover, just cold rock and hard choices. By noon, it was set. Jasper left tracks they couldn't miss. Broken branches, scuffed snow, a trail screaming for pursuit. Lena perched above the ravine, rifle loaded, heart slamming her ribs so hard she could barely breathe. First rider charged in fast, sloppy, eyes down, didn't see Jasper drop from the rocks above, knife flashing quick. He went down hard, a cry muffled by snow, blood staining white. Second and third came rushing after, guns drawn, shouting. Jasper melted into the trees, gone like smoke. One fired wild, bullets ricocheting off stone, pinging loud. Lena held her breath, finger itching on the trigger. Not yet, not yet. They scattered, panicked, voices echoing. Then Margaret rode in, alone, slow, deliberate. Her world narrowed to her, everything else fading. She scanned the ravine, saw the body crumpled in the snow, the blood pooling dark, and dismounted, rifle up, movements careful. Lena stood from the rocks, legs steady now. "Margaret!" She spun, eyes wild, guns swinging toward her. "You!" Her voice cracked, disbelief dripping. She stepped down slow, revolver firm in her hand, finger light on the trigger. "You left me to die. I thought—" "No." She cut her off sharp. "You didn't think at all." She raised her rifle, hands shaky, barrel trembling. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. "You won't shoot," she sneered, voice wobbling. "Never had the guts. You don't know what I've got in me now." She froze, sweat beading on her brow, breath steaming fast in the cold. "I didn't want this," she said, words tumbling out. "Needed the money. Land was rotting out there." "You were rotting," she shot back, stepping closer, boots crunching snow. "I survived." She spat, bitter and loud. "That outsider with you? Always needed someone to save your ass." She aimed at her chest, steady, unflinching. "Not anymore." Her grip tightened, finger twitching on the trigger. A shot cracked, loud, sudden, not hers. Margaret's rifle flew from her hands, stock splintered in midair. Jasper stepped from the trees, pistol smoking, eyes cold. Margaret dropped to her knees, hands shooting up, gasping hard. "Please, I didn't mean—" "You locked me in a shed," she said, voice ice stepping closer still. "Left me for dead. Now you beg." She looked up, eyes pleading, face pale. "You gonna shoot me?" She lowered her gun slow, deliberate. "No, I want you to live. Wake up every day, see snow, and remember this. Remember me standing here, alive, while you lost everything." She stared, chest heaving, mouth working, but no words coming. "Walk," Jasper said, voice flat, final. Margaret stumbled to her feet, shaking like a leaf, didn't look back as she staggered into the trees. Lena stood rooted, watching till she vanished, then exhaled long and slow, hands trembling now, adrenaline crashing. Jasper approached, quiet as ever. "You didn't kill her." "Wanted to." "Didn't." She nodded, swallowing hard. "Think that was harder," she whispered, voice breaking. He didn't argue, just stood there solid. Snow fell again, soft and slow, like ash from a fire burned out. Lena looked up at the sky, flakes catching her lashes, then at Jasper. "What now?" He smiled, just a hint, faint as dawn. "Somewhere she won't find us." She nodded, firm. They rode off, snow burying Margaret's tracks behind them, erasing her like she'd never been. But Lena knew better. Some scars didn't fade, etched deep as tracks in frozen earth. They rode silent as the mountains gave way to wide, open fields, the land stretching endless under a gray sky. Snow lightened to a faint flurry, drifting down like ash after a storm, soft and ghostly. Beneath it, the earth hinted at waking, stirring slow, but Lena wasn't chasing spring. Not yet. She wanted justice, cold and sharp, a blade to cut through the lies. Jasper rode beside her, a quiet shadow, his presence steady, unyielding. He hadn't spoken since the ravine, didn't need to. She knew he'd worn her revenge circles back, bites when you least expect. But this wasn't revenge. It was reckoning, a score settled, a life reclaimed. Sun dipped low behind them, painting the snow faint orange as they crested the final hill. There it lay, her ranch, sprawled out like a wound carved into the land. Fences lay broken, snapped like bones, the roof sagged heavy, and smoke curled lazy from the chimney, thin and gray. The porch where Taran used to sit with coffee steaming, rifle across his lap, now held two strangers, laughing loud over a bottle, boots kicked up careless. Not strangers, Margaret's men, hired guns paid with her stolen dirt, her blood, her home. Lena's eyes narrowed, wind slashing cold across her cheeks, tugging her hair loose. Every nerve in her body lit up, memories flooding back. Taran's boots thumping those steps, his laugh in the morning quiet, his fingers brushing hers under the table over breakfast. She turned to Jasper, voice hard as iron. "We end this tonight." He nodded, no hesitation, no questions, just a look that said he was in all the way. They dismounted by the creek that once marked her western boundary, tying the horses low and out of sight behind a thicket of scrub. Lena checked her revolver, 5 rounds, cold and heavy in her hand. She exhaled slow, breath fogging thick, grip tightening till her knuckles ached. They moved like shadows, slipping through tall grass gone wild, past the broken edges of the corral, wood splintered and rotting. A dog barked once in the distance, sharp and sudden, then fell silent, too far to matter. The ranch had changed, warped by neglect, but the soil knew her. Every step forward felt like a piece of her snapping back into place, reclaimed. Jasper signaled left with a quick jerk of his head. He'd circle wide, come at it from the flank. Lena nodded, heart hammering loud in her ears, a war drum driving her on. She hit the barn first, sagging and quiet, its walls leaning like they'd given up. This was where Turan had built a cradle once, pieced together from cedar scraps, his hands steady and sure. The memory hit her like a punch, stealing her breath. She braced against the doorframe, wood rough under her palm, steadying herself. Voices spilled from the main house. Laughter, rough and careless, then glass shattering loud, a bottle hitting the floor. She crept to the porch, boards groaning soft under her boots, but the noise inside masked it. She peeked through a cracked window, grime streaking the glass. 3 men sat at a table, cards scattered messy, a rifle propped lazy in the corner. No Margaret. Not yet. She slid around to the back door, quiet as death, breath shallow. A 4th man stumbled out, fumbling toward the trough, muttering curses, spotted her too late. She cracked the butt of her revolver against his temple, a dull thud, and he crumpled silent into the snow, out cold. She stepped inside, boots soft on warped wood, the air thick with smoke and sweat. The men turned, heads snapping up, but they were too slow, too sloppy. The first drew his gun, hand shaking, her shot punched clean through his shoulder, blood blooming fast. He screamed, high and wild. "Drop it," she hissed, voice low, deadly. The second lunged for the rifle in the corner. Jasper slipped through the front door, silent as a ghost, knife flashing quick across the man's arm. He yelled, "Drop back." The third bolted for the stairs, boots pounding. Lena chased, heart racing, up the narrow steps, past the bedroom where she and Taran had lain in the early mornings, whispering names for kids they'd never have, dreams that died with him. Her chest tightened, but her feet didn't stop, didn't waver. At the top, he ducked behind the open door, lunged sudden with a knife gleaming. She twisted fast, grabbed his coat collar, slammed him hard against the wall, plaster cracking. "Where's Margaret?" she growled, pressing her gun to his chest. He spat blood, grinning weak through stained teeth. "Gone. Took the gold. Rode east, long gone." She shoved the barrel under his jaw, cold steel kissing skin. "Try again." "North," he choked, eyes wide, panic breaking through. "Old logging trail. Waiting for word. Thought you were dead. Swore you were." She stepped back, gun steady, staring him down. "You're lucky I don't finish what she started." He whimpered, slid down the wall, curling into himself. She turned, boots stomping loud as she descended, each step a hammer blow. Jasper stood by the table. One man unconscious, sprawled across the floor, another groaning low, clutching his arm. "She's running," she said, voice tight, urgent. Jasper didn't flinch, just met her eyes. "Then we follow." They rode out through the dark, cutting across frozen fields and narrow deer trails, the night swallowing them whole. Lena leaned forward, urging the mare faster, hooves drumming a relentless beat in her chest, matching her pulse. Moonlight filtered thin through bare branches, casting jagged shadows that danced across the snow. By the time they reached the old logging camp, the fire was dead, ashes cold, but the snow bore fresh tracks, one horse pacing restless, then veering off sharp into the trees. Lena dismounted, followed the trail on foot, revolver out, grip steady. Jasper moved parallel, eyes sweeping the woods, silent as ever. A branch snapped, loud, too loud. She spun, gun up, breath held. "Easy." Margaret's voice slithered from the dark, low and mocking. "You're a long way from your grave, Lena." She stepped forward, boots crunching snow, eyes straining. "You're a long way from anything good." She emerged slow, rifle raised, moonlight glinting off the barrel, her face twisted with something. Anger, fear, maybe both. "Put down, Lena. We both know you won't shoot." "I didn't come here to wait around," she said, voice cold, steady. Her eyes narrowed, squinting hard. "Taran always said you were soft, all fire, no fuse to light it." Her jaw locked tight, teeth grinding. "He knew you were poison. Thought he could keep me safe from you." "You don't get it." Margaret snapped, voice rising, cracking. "I grew up with nothing, scratching dirt while Taran got the land, the woman, the respect. I deserve that life, earned it." "You earned a bullet," she said, low and fierce. She jerked her rifle up, finger tightening. Jasper fired first, sharp, final, the shot echoing loud through the trees. Margaret staggered, weapon dropping, hit her knees hard, blood spreading dark across her chest, soaking her coat. She looked up at her, stunned, mouth gaping. "You let him shoot me?" She stepped closer, boots sinking in snow, voice ice cold. "No, Margaret. I let you live, and you used it to crawl deeper into hell." She slumped forward, breath rattling out slow, then gone. The forest stilled, snow falling soft, swallowing the sound. Lena holstered her gun, turned away, legs heavy. They buried her by the creek, shallow, quick, silent, no words between them. Nothing left to say, nothing worth saying. Back at the ranch, wind whistled sharp through broken eaves, tugging at the edges of the night. Lena stood on the porch, staring out over fields swirling with snow, flakes catching on busted fence posts and tall grass gone wild. "It's still mine," she said soft, almost to herself, voice carrying a quiet strength. Jasper nodded beside her, a steady shadow. "What will you do with it?" She looked out long, wind pulling at her hair, snow dusting her shoulders. "Rebuild. Not the house, not the fences, something new, something better, something they can't touch." He glanced at her, eyes steady, searching. "You won't be alone." "I know," she said, firm, certain. Sun rose slow over the plains the next morning, casting long shadows behind them across the snow. A new day, built not on vengeance or grief, but on choice, on will. Lena turned to him, wind tugging her voice. "You said family's choice." He met her gaze, unflinching. "It is." She smiled, faint but real, the first in too long. "Then stay." He didn't answer right away, didn't move to leave either, just stood there, solid, like he'd always been. Later, she'd ride out to neighboring towns, find women like her, forgotten, cast off, locked away, and break their chains one by one, build something with them. But for now, she stood on that porch with the man who'd shattered her prison, given her back her name, her fight, her fire. The wind eased, snow settled soft, and Lena breathed deep, alive, unbroken, ready for whatever came next. If this story grabbed you, hit like, subscribe, drop your thoughts below. Let's keep this alive. Let's see where it takes us.